Welcome. You are listening to Humans of Mitti Ke Rang, and today we are in conversation with Miss Erika Yague. Originally from the Philippines, Miss Erika is a Rotary Peace Fellow at the University of Queensland, Australia, and is doing her Masters in Peace and Conflict Studies. She is a human rights activist and has extensive work experience in the field of adolescent and youth empowerment. Tune in to know more about her journey so far.
Yep, could hear you properly.
Great. For everybody who's joining us, let's welcome our guest for today. Her name is Erika Yague, and she's originally from the Philippines and currently resides in Australia. And she is a human rights activist and has done a lot of amazing work. So let's talk to her more and find out more about her journey so far. Erika, should we start with a question?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Please tell us when was the first time you came across something and you noticed that this isn't right and you should speak up against it? So when did you have that realization?
Okay. So like for me, I grew up in a very low middle income family where we really need to strive hard in order to reach like education, proper healthcare, and those kinds of things in the Philippines. And the first time that I felt that it was wrong is when I experienced abuse at the age of 6, not from my family but from a neighbor. And I wasn't really able to get justice from my experience, given that the person who committed this crime was a distinct member of society. He was a professor. He had he was in a higher income class than we were, and we didn't have the means and the support in order for us to like press charges. So I thought like from back then, the only way for me to get the justice that I needed was to end this type of violence for women and young girls. So that's when I started realizing that there was a bigger fight for this type of injustices, and then I got inspired to speak up because of other women who also spoke up about their experience in gender-based violence. So yeah, from a young age until I grew up into my bachelor's, so that's when I started speaking up and being more engaged into the ills of society. Yeah.
Okay. It's very it's difficult to take a negative experience of your life and turn it into something so positive. So kudos to you for doing that. You are currently pursuing your degree in Peace and Conflict Studies. So please tell us more about that. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing about something like this. So yeah, I'm interested.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been working a lot in the field of peace building, youth peace and security in the Philippines and in the region in Asia Pacific. But my background is actually on community development. It's more of grassroots approach. But when I worked in field of peace building, I could see how the connection is in terms of having it be more community-based, grassroots engagement, and multi-sectoral, where we have women, girls, young people. But I wanted to learn more about this field of peace building and how it connects to the global architecture of peace and security. So I looked for like what kind of masters does this, and now there's a growing field of peace and conflict studies. So I got into the University of Queensland to do my master's, but I'm also part of this fellowship program, which is the Rotary Peace Fellowship program. So they offer scholarships and they cover the expenses that you need while you're doing your master's, which is funded by the Rotary Foundation that's based in Chicago. And then they have five peace centers, and one of them is the University of Queensland. So I applied to that, and then got into the program. And what's really nice about this master's is that they have a mix of theory and practice. In theory, like the things that you learn in books, in school, but they also have a balance of practice where you also got to experience what's happening in the field. For the summer of the first year, we were able to go to work with organizations that works in peace and conflict, which is why for me, I work with Unicef on how young people engage with different organizations on building peace and social cohesion in communities. So yeah, it's been a really nice experience, and I just finished actually. This is my last semester. It's an 18-month program, and it's been amazing. Like, I really enjoyed the experience.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Great. We read that you're also a part of the Asian Youth Peace Network, and you represent other youth groups as well. So please tell us more about them and what work do you cover with them?
Okay, so Asian Youth Peace Network is a network of different individuals, young peace builders, and youth organizations based across Asia and the Pacific. In terms of Asia, we also have it a bit diverse because we also include like some countries in the Middle East. Like, we look at it as the Asian continent rather than, how other people label Asian Pacific based on, let's say, UN standards or whatever. So that's the organization. And at the moment, my role in the organization is the linkage between between Asian Youth Peace Network and the UN. So I am currently representing AYPN in the UN Major Group for Children and Youth, particularly in SDG 16 or Sustainable Development Goal 16, the Youth Caucus that focus on that agenda. And I am one of the global focal points. So we work towards bringing in youth voices and youth action in different UN agenda, particularly relating to SDG 16. But like the mandate of AYPN is more of working with youth organizations, governments, and intergovernmental bodies like the UN, ASEAN, SARC, if ever, and trying to bring in the experiences, the lived experience of young peace builders in the field into these big kind of policy making bodies. So yeah, that's what I have been doing with AYPN.
Great. So talking about UNICEF and UNEFPA specifically, could you please elaborate more on that?
Okay, so before I worked with the UN, I worked a lot in grassroots organization, and then from my experience in that, I thought it would be nice to have an experience outside the country to learn more on what's happening in the region or at the international stage. So I applied for a fellowship program with UNFPA. So UNFPA is a UN entity that works on sexual reproductive health. So it's the United Nations Population Fund. They work on population, sexual reproductive health, and a lot of young people as well, and aging. So I applied for this program that they have called the Young Innovators Fellowship Program, where we brought in innovation to UNFPA through their different fields. So there were 8 of us, and I was focused more on bringing in the youth lens and youth innovation lens in terms of the aspect on humanitarian and peace building, because that's my experience from the field. And then the program is a 1-year program. Half of it is done in New York, and then another half in the regional office. And I was based in Asia Pacific region. So after that 1-year program, like, we had our own projects. One of my biggest projects then was the Asia Pacific Youth Peace and Security Consultation, which fed into the Global Progress Study of the UN Security Council Resolution 2250 on youth peace and security. And then after the fellowship, I continued working with them as a youth program officer until I started my master's. And then I told earlier that I also work with Unicef as part of my fellowship program. So currently I am still working with Unicef, doing remote consultancies with them, but specifically working on adolescent and youth engagement and participation in humanitarian and peace building, as well as digital sexuality education here in Asia and the Pacific. So it's a bit of like the two experiences that I've had throughout the years. And yeah, so it's been really fulfilling, and I've been working a lot with youth organizations in this capacity. So yeah.
Lovely. So would you say that these experiences have opened you up to fight for other causes than just women?
Yes, definitely. Like throughout all this work, I've always integrated like the fight for gender empowerment, especially women empowerment as well. Also with LGBT. For instance, in digital sexuality education, most of the partners that we've had are like young people fighting for gender equality in aspects of women, LGBT, and having the right access to justice and even social services. And then that's the same thing in peace building and humanitarian action. For instance, in humanitarian work, you'd have to really take into consideration the specific needs of women, of our LGBT brothers and sisters, and the different kinds of like experiences that young people have, like for disabilities, making it accessible for them, and making it culturally appropriate as well. So yeah.
Great. And you have also been elected official in the local government of Philippines and other communities. So that sounds like quite an experience. Please share.
Yeah. So there's this part in the Philippines, there is a designated role, or there is a designated official elected position for young people that is from the community, and then it has levels for the city, regional, and nationwide. And I was elected for the community and the city level as the chairwoman of young people in that area. And that experience was really like, it was eye-opening in good and bad ways. Like there's always ups and downs, especially with working in the government, and as a young person who is very innovative, who is very open-minded, and like you want to do certain things, but you're not really used to the bureaucracy of the government. So that's the kind of give and take relationship that I had back then. But it was inspiring in a way that you could see that young people can be part of government, and if these spaces are really utilized in order to push forward young people's integration in the different programs, then it's good. However, like there is still a rampant case of having it to be more tokenistic rather than having really meaningful engagement. So yeah, I think there's really much work to be done. We did the reform for this body, for the youth body in local government in the Philippines, and I feel like it's better now, but still there needs to be more change of culture into working with and for young people rather than just working for young people. And yeah, so that has been a good experience.
Great. Could you please share with us some of the causes like that you've fought for, and say even right now the Black Lives Matter movement is going on? Have you guys tried to contribute to it? Please share more.
So we worked a lot in the different causes. For instance, here in since I'm away from home, I try my best to stay connected to the issues that's happening in my country. And I guess everything has been moving online as well. Like in little ways, we try to raise awareness of the issues that's happening. And like I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where we joined the Australian Black Lives Matter protest here in Brisbane, and the turnout was really good. There was, I think, 30,000 people who joined the protest to raise awareness.
Wow.
And what's really great is that they connected the issues of that's local here in Australia, which is the indigenous issues of Australia, and connecting it to the global Black Lives Matter. And I feel like this type of contextualization and trying to connect to the global issue to push forward for advocacies that's not only in the international where we see it online, but also trying to see it more active in the grassroots level and in the community's context in order to create change. So yeah, one of the things, and I could share also what's happening in the Philippines, where what they're connecting the terror bill, which is a little bit problematic in terms of the democracy and the human rights of the Philippines for people to speak up. So connecting this to the fascist act of Black Lives Matter was also one of the things that they integrate in the country, in the Philippines. So yeah, I mean, trying to see the different interlinkages of different sectors in the call for justice and equality. Yeah.
Great. On this note, we have a couple questions from a viewer.
Okay.
So he has two questions. They're more or less similar, so I'll read out both of them. So his first question is, I would like to know how UN volunteers earn their living, and how do we actually work for a social cause full-time along with earning a decent living?
Okay. So actually, there is this UN volunteers. It's actually paid. They say it's not paid because you don't receive a salary, or it's not called the salary, but rather it's called a support, or it's like how do you call this? They give support for your living expenses. So UN volunteers are technically paid, but it's not called it. It's like a stipend there. It's a stipend for you to be able to live off your life and daily life. So yeah, that's how we're able to work. And also, like, I've been working with the UN through consultancy mechanisms. So that mechanism is paid, but you work for certain contracts. So I guess that's how it works for UN volunteers. And if you would go to the UN volunteer website, they have a list of different volunteer opportunities, which could be remote or in person. And those volunteer opportunities are also supported in terms of stipend. So yeah.
Right. And for causes other than UN, if you're working for causes other than UN?
Yep. So for other causes, I've also been working a lot with Asian Youth Peace Network. So what we're doing is that we're linking peace building work into the policy body. So now we're trying to see how we could get young policymakers to take on the responsibility or the accountability of government to be more responsive to the specific needs of young people in peace and security. So yeah. Oh, and another thing is on digital sexuality education. So I've been working a lot on how we would utilize the online world of creating like short courses for young people to get into. So that's my kind of social enterprise kind of work. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you for answering that. Moving on with my question. Erika, do you have an inspiration or someone that you look up to when it comes to your work?
Oh yeah. So I have like two inspiration. One inspiration is coming from the people that I work with, because to see how I have allies and peers that think the same way, that wants the same thing to reach equality and justice, like you, for instance. So a lot of people and young people who work in this field and being so passionate and dedicated in this work is one of my inspirations. And another one is that I look up to the women figures in my life who really showed strength in their experiences. One of them is my mother, who I really look up to because she is able to turn like bad experiences into positive energy that would be more productive, not only for her but for the community that she's in. So yeah, those are my inspiration in the work that I do.
Lovely. So for our Indian viewers and listeners, if you could tell us more about the Philippines as well as Australia and what you find is the beauty of these two countries.
Okay. So India is beautiful. I've only been to Chandigarh and Delhi. Of course, yeah. I've also been to Agra for the Taj Mahal. And I can say it's very similar to the Philippines. Like Manila is similar to New Delhi because of the population and the pollution, I guess. But it's,
okay.
but it's very lively. I really like the energy that we have in cities. But for the Philippines, I feel like one of the best things that I could share is the diversity in the culture that we have, because we were colonized by different countries that we became a melting pot of these different cultures. And also like the natural resources are also very nice, like the sceneries, the mountains, and the beaches that we have are amazing. And then here in Australia, it's very similar to the Philippines in terms of its beaches. But here it's really nice to see the diversity as well of people, given that I live in a city in Australia, it's Brisbane. It's not as populated as Sydney and Melbourne. It's a bit more quiet. And then I really love their open spaces as places for the public. Like even barbecues are free for people to use. Like, and then there's just a lot of nature walks around the area, even if that I live in the city. So I really feel like one of the best, like you can go to the Philippines and then visit Australia as well because both countries are really close to each other. So I really highly recommend that if you go to the Philippines or Australia, that you go to the outback rather than just go to the cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, but also go like further to Cairns, or in the Philippines, go to the mountain province or to Samar Island. So yeah.
Great, lovely. We have another question from the same viewer, and he asked, for a normal youngster who hasn't had much experience of groundwork or volunteering, how should one apply for such UN programs?
Okay. For young people, I feel like one of the best ways in order to engage with the UN is through joining local youth organizations. And then through your youth organizations, you could connect to different international organizations as well in order to connect with the UN. For instance, UNMGCY, the UN Major Group for Children and Youth, is composed of individuals, youth organizations, and youth networks. And this body can become the arm of young people in order to connect to different UN entities. For instance, me as part of Asian Youth Peace Network, we are part of UNMGCY, and through UNMGCY, we're able to connect to the different UN programs and policy making, and we're able to really contribute to what's happening. So yeah, definitely I encourage you to join your youth organization or UNMGCY as an individual as well.
Lovely. And my next question is similar to the question he asked as well. So from your experience, what would be some words of advice that you would like to give to the youth out there who are hoping to get into the same field of work as you?
Okay, so if you really want to work in the development sector, in humanitarian sector, in peace building sector, I'd like to say that this is not an avenue for you to really work out of profit. I mean, you will not go in this field for profit, but you should do it, like you should come into this field working with the passion that you have. And with this passion, this will actually make everything follow. Like, you'll be able to sustain yourself. I'm saying that you're not going in this field and then you're going to be broke, so that's not gonna happen. But you come into this field with the right purpose. And that purpose is for you to work with passion for the people rather than passion for yourself. So you need to be selfless in this kind of work. And also, like, you should also have like principles that are really grounded and rooted to the development and betterment of society and people that you serve. So I always remind myself of this Buddhist mantra in this line of work, which is you should have a strong back in order to carry all the burden that you have or the burden that you receive from society, and then soft front in order for you to show compassion outwards, and a good heart for you to have the energy to do what you do. So yeah, that's an advice for my part.
Lovely. Thank you so much for your amazing words. Whenever you have time and you get to see this conversation back, you have a lot of friends who are commenting really nice things about you, so you can go through that. And coming to my final question before we end the session for today, if any of our viewers and listeners want to get in touch with you and they want to know more about you and your work, how can they do that?
So you could reach me here in my Instagram. I'd be happy to connect and discuss and like work on projects together. I'm really looking forward to that. On Twitter, I have my Twitter handle, which is Yague Erika, and LinkedIn. I just search my name on LinkedIn and you'll find me there. And I'm really happy and open to connect to whoever would like to partner. So yeah.
Lovely. And if you didn't get that, you will find her tagged in all of our posts. So you can just check that out and then you'll find her account. So thank you so much, Erika, for joining us. It's been lovely talking to you and knowing more about your journey. We wish you all the very best with whatever you're doing. And yes, thank you again.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for this opportunity to share. And to you and the organization, thank you.
Thank you so much. Please take care and have a good night.
Yep. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.